heard that Canada Lands is looking for a clear indication from the province and the municipality of their support for a stadium at Shannon Park before any deal goes through. Any update on your end?
I haven't seen the proposal. There's been nothing brought to us in terms of what a stadium will look like and the location. I've heard about it, but nothing is officially brought to us.
What do you make of the delays on this?
I think as you're going through, there's been obviously lots of public conversation about the stadium, what it looks like. I think the proponent has now had a couple of revisions about what that stadium would look like. I think that's probably the issue, trying to make sure that whatever it is, if they do finally put a proposal forward, is one that they believe can be sustainable.
Do you feel that's the best use of that land?
At this point, it's the only idea that's brought, but I haven't seen that idea, so that land and the use of it would be with the municipality.
Public concern on this, Premier, is that several community consultations were held way before a stadium was ever discussed, and a stadium actually wasn't brought forward as a suggestion by the public. So citizens are feeling those discussions are falling on deaf ears now that a business proposal has been brought forward for a stadium. What would you have to say to the public who feel like they're just being blindsided by all this?
Well, this would be with council. This provision would be with city council, and then they have a relationship they would have with federal lands about what they do with that, and the decision would then be made. Our role would be is if whatever the proposal is, if they're looking for our support financially or some role to play in that, would be unrelated to the land piece. But we wait to see that. But I have not had an ask.
Any news on street trees?
Well, as I said today, Minister Fury is going through the report. He'll have more to say, but as you know, he sent a directive out very early on that these need to be street checks were not part of normal policing.
Premier, there's going to be a federal assessment on the Boat Harbour cleanup. When would you hope that the cleanup might get underway? Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done before that can happen.
Yeah, the timeline, I'm not exactly sure the timeline. This will certainly extend it before the work actually begins, but I don't know the timeline.
Premier, the NDP introduced a series of bills for what they're calling democratic renewal. Do you think that you need to address public participation in government?
I didn't see the particular bills they brought in. I heard them being introduced, but I mean, ultimately, that's the role of all MLAs to continue to make sure that we're out engaging with our citizens, keeping them informed and engaged. When you look at what that looks like when it comes to the legislature, I'm always interested in hearing new ideas about how we can do that. We televised committee meetings here, introduced the Health Committee, which is our largest single budget item, to be able to have view of Nova Scotians, to be able to see that, and we'll continue to look at other recommendations that people may have.
What's your position on proportional representation?
Well, that takes many forms, and what that looks like, depending on how that is. In some cases, it's the slate of candidates and the party appoints them. There's lots of Canadians who don't believe appointed Senate works. I'm not sure they want the appointed legislature to be there. There's always challenges. I've talked about the fact that I like a preferential ballot, particular ridings where citizens get to rank the individual candidates in the riding, so people would show up here with 50% of the vote, final vote. All of those are ideas that could be part of that conversation.
Do you think it's fair for a governing party to have 100% of the power and less than 50% of the popular vote?
Well, that is the system that we've been governed under, and it's one that we continue to be governed under. And whenever there are changes or talked about having changes in and around how we're represented, there is not unanimity. So until then, we'll continue to operate under the rules that are here.
Just to be clear, you're not looking at that. You're not.
No.
Cassidy Bernard's family was here, a resolution was passed. What do you say to them in terms of concrete next steps for doing something to address their concerns?
Well, I actually spoke to them and told them this is one issue that all three parties were unanimous in ensuring that we had an inquiry, a national inquiry on missing Aboriginal women and girls. Very proud of the work that the status of women, along with our Justice Department, was doing in and around when the inquiry came to member two, continuing to work with them to ensure that they have the support of our community. I was proud to be in Waikowhak to open a new court, a wellness court. Those steps are all steps in the journey, and I'm looking forward to the recommendations that will come out. I think it's early June. The recommendations from the environment will be coming out, and we'll look at those to continue to ensure that we see that the Mi'kmaq see the justice system as something that's there, able to work for them, as opposed to something that is adversarial.
But is there anything more your government could and should be doing?
Well, we'll continue to make investments, and as I said to you, we opened the first wellness court in the country here, and we put it in Whiteclaw. We know there's still more work to do. We've participated in the inquiry. That was a recommendation to come out. Both the status of women, the Justice Department were there. Both of our ministers were there. You got lots of support at the national level from the inquiry around the fact of our participation in that, because we sincerely want to hear what those recommendations are so that we can implement and look at, so that Aboriginal community, Aboriginal families do not feel the way they're feeling today, that they feel that they've been hurt.
Right, but you say there's more work to be done. In terms of your government, what's on the to-do list?
Well, the inquiry is going to provide that with us. That's part of what our participation inquiry was. It wasn't just our government. I want to say it was unanimous support of the House of Assembly that all members, regardless of which party you represented, wanted Nova Scotia to participate in that national inquiry. That work is ongoing. When those recommendations come back, those are the steps that we look at. But in the meantime, we continue to make those investments. We were proud when I was there to open the court, appointed the first Mi'kmaq woman to the bench in family provincial court. These are all signs that we wanted to send to the Mi'kmaq community, that we are listening, we hear them, and we look forward to hearing the recommendations of that inquiry, so we continue our work.
Just about wrapped up what you wanted to do this session?
No, I have another bill I need to get through. I need to get the presumed consent bill. But I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do. This budget has been one that reflects the hard work of Nova Scotians, and I look forward to continuing to work with them.
Premier, have you heard from anyone with any substantive problems with your bill?
No, I haven't. I've heard people who are having there's lots of misunderstanding about it. People felt this meant that the bodies would automatically be donated to science and all of that. This is purely, strictly to presumed consent around organ donation and tissue donation. There are people obviously who have some concerns about how do you register, how do you make sure that you can opt out. And once you explain to them, your family also still has the final check to be able to say yes, our loved one still wants to be an organ donor. Then people understand the importance of this. And I must say, in the last number of weeks, there has been a large number of stories about families who have lost a loved one and those who have received the organs. It's been not only a great success in terms of changing the lives of those individuals, but it's been a healing process for those who have lost somebody. I've said it's rare that when tragedy strikes us, that we get a chance in that tragedy and in that grief to be able to make a positive out of it. And that stood out to me when the families were here. And it is one of the things that I hope will be really part of our longer conversation about organ donation, working with healthcare providers to make sure that when they have to ask those all difficult questions at difficult times for families, that we put in place the right mechanism and the right process. And I believe what we have is the right question, which is, your loved one is an organ donor. Do you want us to continue?
Premier, are you going to China this spring?
Yes.
When are you leaving and what's it about?
I'm going in and I don't know the exact dates. We're working together. When I called the ambassador about the issue around the Maud Lewis exhibit, Minister Glavine will be taking that exhibit in. I'll be going as part of that, but my main mission this time around will be to meet with Governor Ma of Guangdong Province, continue to make sure that we build on the economic success that we've had, and at the same time ensuring that we continue the conversation with the direct flight.
This has been a rough time for Canada-China relations. Is this mission partly about trying to smooth things over and make sure that your efforts on trade with China don't go off track?
It has been certainly one of the things that I have heard even before the issue with our two federal governments was that you need to continue to go to China. As you know, the Minister of Fisheries was in there at least once, if not twice a year. We now have taken the next phase of this relationship, which really was trying to how do we build a cultural link, because we believe that we can continue to provide a tourism opportunity. At the the same time continue to grow our international student population, and that's really what this is about. Last year I was in there twice as well. This would be the second time in. I was pleased when I spoke with the ambassador that he was supportive of going in and working with us to ensure that we continue to try to have this conversation about that direct flight that I think is all important, not just for Nova Scotia, but I think for Atlantic Canada.
How many trips have you made?
Last question.
Oh, I 6 or 7.
This
Yeah.
will be number 7.
I think it's 6, 7. I can tell you it's a long flight.
Yeah, looking forward to folding yourself up.
Yeah,
into a
exactly.
conference.
My assistant finds me a really nice exit seat.
And is this the only foreign trip you're making this spring?
No, I'm actually going I'll be going to the first inaugural flight into Dublin, which will be the 29th. Associated with that are a number of connections in and around Europe. Paris, I'm speaking at a chamber event, as well as in, I believe it's in Scotland. I believe I'm also speaking at a chamber event. And then later in the summer, later in spring and June, I'll be going into Israel and Lebanon.